you have no doubt found us online, and thus we are the appropriately titled Things I Found Online podcast. Today we will be controversially exploring comedians and controversy. I'm here with Lauri Roggenkamp. I am Louise Palanker, and with us is the as yet uncontroversial comedian Brad Sanders. Wait until the show's over, though. And now listen as I gracefully introduce myself, because this was going to be what Jack read, but Jack's not here. All right. So please welcome our guest, Brad Sanders.
Woo! Hey.
Brad Sanders and I go way back. I don't even remember ever not knowing you.
Really?
Not really.
It has been a while.
Yeah. So Brad
Every
and
now and then I come across some old photographs of us.
I used to take all those photos for our little newsletter.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was a multitasker. We published a
weekly.
weekly.
You, Fraser Smith.
Yup, Gary Owens and
Ronnie. What's his name? The sitcom guy.
Ronnie Shell.
Shell. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Jeff Altman.
Yeah.
Jeff Altman.
I don't need it.
That's good. So, Brad, let's click on Brad's website or his credits or his IMDb. I'm not sure what link I gave you, but it's quite impressive.
Yeah. So all this felonious information I gave you.
Yeah, there we go. There's
my
Brad.
Bio up. Look at this.
Oh,
that is one dashing
man. He's
man.
195
His
pounds.
weight is in there.
Oh my God, this week, yeah.
Yep. And so look at all your credits. I Am Comic, Hollywood Shuffle, Brewster's Millions. So you're an actor / stand-up comedian.
I'm going to call me anything but late for the paycheck, baby. I'm just trying to work in the business.
And so when I met you, this is my memory of it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but when I met you, I was writing for Rick Dees, and you were doing a weekly or a daily bit called The Clans All My Children Update, and calling Rick Dees.
Thank you for the proper pronunciation of clans.
Clans.
Yeah,
so,
clans. I dropped the R from clans because it sounds more hipper.
Right. So you would kind of like be this guy in a phone booth sort of calling in the lowdown on what happened on All My Children.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
That's where it started with All My Children. And then we were doing very well with it. So that was that before Premiere started?
I think so. And I think Steve Lehman came to you, and because you were calling like 50 radio stations a day or something. And
No.
Okay.
I was calling 10 radio stations.
Okay.
They were good ones. New York, Chicago, LA, Philly, Dallas, Fort Lauderdale, and a couple of others. And I was on the New Yorker, WHTZ, with Scott Shannon, Z Morning Zoo.
Wow.
And I had no idea that this was like a major deal, because I was doing stand-up, and my Clarence character came out of stand-up. And I said, the premise of the bit was the story always takes on the personality of the storyteller. It's like when I listened to my mother telling her girlfriends what happened on All My Children.
And that's
and then Cliff came in there, and Palmer Cortland just started having a fit because he caught her with Nina, and Nina said, "Girl, really? Oh yeah, honey. Let me tell you."
It would sound like when I'd hear my family members talking about what happened on This Is Us or whatever it is, like you're just like, is that real people or is that a show? Like you don't like, are you talking about people we know?
I heard two ladies talking about it, and I started feeling sorry for them, because then somebody came through the light and T-boned them and killed them both. I'm like, oh my God, that's terrible. Yeah, then they went to commercial. Get out.
So you're like, this is gold. I just have to turn this into gold.
No, but where I got the Clans character from, I used to go to this bar on 71st Street near Jeffrey in Chicago, right? And this little dude be hanging around like, yeah, my name Clans. What's going on? How you feeling? Yeah, and he talked like that. And so I took his personality and put it into talking about the story.
Genius.
Yeah, on the Young and the Restless today, baby. Ooh, man, I'm gonna tell you something. That Hope ain't got a chance against that old tramp Nina. She a straight up 24/7 slut,
And so it really did not matter whether or not you watched the show. I'm guessing it was like twice as funny if you watched the show, but I had never watched the show, and it's funny.
Well, see, that's the thing. It was comedy, and I think that's what make the experience as a comedian is what makes it work for anybody who happens to walk by and listen to it. I have one of the station managers, the station owners, he died, and his daughter called me to say how much he really loved my show and the bright spot of the day and all of that. And he was not a soap fan, but when you do know the soap, then man, it really does get to you. Because when I started doing it on stage, I started talking about it, and I would actually watch the show because I got hooked on it from a friend of mine. We were playing golf one day, and he had to leave in a hurry to get home to watch Miss Erica Kane on All My Children. I'm like, what is this? And I got hooked on it. So it was just one of those things where once I started talking about it in this persona, I was talking about it on stage, and I thought it was bombing because people were really quiet. And I guess quiet is good if they're not going, boo, get off.
Yeah, as a comedian, you start to take anything other than shut up as like, I'm killing.
And most people, yeah. Oh, let me tell you something, Lauri. I was bombing so bad one time, the hecklers were raising their hand. I got next. Okay, you in the front and then the guy in the back.
On the line.
They brought out another microphone strictly for the hecklers. We're going to give each of you 5 minutes.
Yeah, no, 5. I didn't have but 5.
And then Trump was like, no follow-up heckles.
No, take the mic from her.
So then I guess Steve Lehman came to you and said, you don't have to make 10 phone calls. We're going to turn this into a syndicated bit. You just come into Premiere, you record the bit.
Wow.
And you were our third show, Brad.
Yeah, I know, because you had National Lampoon's True Facts and Veggie Tales or something. I don't know.
We had what we called the Plain Rap Countdown.
Plain Rap Countdown.
Yep, and that was a countdown that I would write and record all the interviews with all the celebrities, and then every jock in every town could do his own countdown using a script and all the interviews with all the celebrities that they would get. It was like
well, let me tell you how Steve approached me, Lauri. Here's, so Steve comes over to my house, right?
This is the president of Premiere Radio.
Yeah, Steve Lehman comes to my house with these way too short pants on, right?
Oh God! Is this turning into a Me Too movement?
No, this is a none for me movement. None for me, thanks. And I don't really need that. I can't concentrate on the business in hand if I gotta turn away from your butt lobe every time you move in the chair.
He rides his bike everywhere. Like, guy rides his bike like 70 miles a day.
It was Tim Reed. Damn, I'm putting Negroes in it now. Okay. It was Tim Kelly, and Steve Lehman. They came to the house, and I'm my talent, and we're gonna do this, it was all this big razzmatazz. I'm like, this guy, but anyway, I said, well, look, talk to my guy, and talk to my lawyer, talk to my guy, and you guys make a deal. Then I had to go get a guy.
I was literally just thinking, wow, you had a guy.
I didn't have shit. Yeah, my guy.
That's awesome.
So then that turned into like, what are you doing now, Brad? Because we're going to show a clip from what you currently do. Are you still updating a soap opera on the daily?
No, I'm not. I did that up until about 2015, 2016.
Wow.
And with The Bold and the Beautiful.
Right.
That's what I started doing.
How long? When did you start doing it? You say
the first update in general, or just the Bold and Beautiful thing?
I guess the first update in general.
Well, I think that would have had to have been probably about 85, 86.
Yeah, those are the 80s. Jesus. All right, so let's play a clip of Brad in action.
That's awesome.
So now I know who that old guy is looking back at me.
You're not old.
I was born in 86.
On B&B, Rick and Caroline got married right after Thanksgiving dinner. Caught them all by surprise. What about a wedding dress? We make dresses. Check it out. That dress was crazy nice, and she looked good in it. Carter officiated the ceremony, but the way they were looking at each other, I didn't think they'd make it through the I do's. It was a good thing they only had to go as far as the guest house to find a bed, because they were hornier than Trombone Shorty's brass band. Let's give them a little privacy, shall we? Now, Quinn volunteered Donna to help her.
And now, Brad, you're doing something called Inside the News?
Inside look at the news inside the news.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I do random videos.
All right, let's take a look at that.
Okay.
Now, here's an inside look at the news inside the news with Clarence.
Oh, Clarence.
Well, Donald Trump finally saw President Barack Obama's long-form birth certificate. Then he tried to challenge the president's college grades, implying that he got into Columbia University and Harvard Law School just because he was black. Well, let's take a look at your college transcripts, Mr. Trump. Ooh, that's ugly. President Barack Obama graduated magna cum laude and went on to teach 12 years of constitutional law at the University of Chicago. You graduated, thank you, Lauri.
All right, so we're going to get into some controversy right now. Either comedians are drawn to controversy or controversy is drawn to comedians. What's most funny is what we all understand to be most true. You can be funny by speaking truth about your dad's ear hair, but the boldest of comedians possess a compass which points to darker truths about politics, racism, misogyny, religion, and social norms. And laughter shines a light on that darkness, which is healing. Comedians have brought about historical change. So my question for you, Brad and Lauri, is this.
Okay.
Why do you think this is true? Is it easier for us to recognize an important truth while we are laughing at it?
I go out to make people laugh primarily. Now, the things that make people laugh, as you alluded to earlier just now, is the recognizable, the things they're familiar with, the things that are true. In comedy, unlike politics, truth matters. And so to be funny and to be in it, some people say irrelevant. I don't know if the intent is to be relevant as much as it is to just be truthful and rail against those things that make you angry. Without laughter, your only recourse might be to get up in a building somewhere and do something crazy. And so, I don't think comedians look for controversy per se, but it does. We find each other. It's like, ain't that some shit? Kind of deal.
Yeah.
How in the hell this guy's the president of the United States, grabbing women by the vajayski, talking crazy, doing all this stuff, and then you build that consciousness, and other people feel the same way, and the laughter results in that. Just like when Hannibal Buress started talking about Bill Cosby.
Yeah, well, we're gonna get into that. So let's talk about Hannibal Buress and Bill Cosby. First, a little history lesson. Back in 2005, the Washington Post wrote about how allegations of sexual misconduct by Cosby were sparking debate within the very black communities he was scolding. A local radio host said, "You can't go around lecturing people about their behavior and not be honest about your own." Tina Fey and Amy Poehler told a joke about the allegations in 2005 on Saturday Night Live. In 2009, Tracy Morgan made a reference to them in 30 Rock with his character saying, "Bill Cosby, you got a lot of nerve getting on the phone with me after what you did to my Aunt Paulette, 1971, Cincinnati. Oh. She was a cocktail waitress with the droopy eye." There were scores of...
I don't know if that was just a straight up joke or the truth. Now, that could be true.
That actually could be true.
I mean.
There were scores of allegations about Cosby when a blurry phone video captured Hannibal Buress saying this in Philadelphia in 2014. So we've got that video.
13, and it's even worse because Bill Cosby has the fucking smuggest old black man public persona that I hate. This kid's on TV. Pull your pants up, black people. I was on TV in the 80s. I can talk down to you because I had a successful sitcom. Yeah, it was great women, Bill Cosby, so kind of brings it down a couple notches. I don't curse on stage. Well, yeah, you're a rapist, so it'll take you saying lots of motherfuckers on Bill Cosby himself if you weren't a rapist. I don't know what I'm doing.
So the question then for the panel is, why did we listen to him? And I just gave you the history lesson, so you know how many people were speaking out about it, and you know all of the women were speaking out. I think there were like 60 women. Why did we listen to Hannibal Buress when we hadn't listened yet?
I think it was the tipping point. To be honest, I think, we have mentioned that there were a lot of other comedians who had joked about it, and that, it was kind of one of those things where it's like, ha ha ha, it's like the Louis C.K. thing where people joked about it and then they kind of just went on with their life. But it wasn't until the Hannibal Buress thing came, and then come to find out there was an article being done, and then come to find out more people were coming forward, and then it was just like, I think it was just the perfect storm of that. This was the tipping point where it's like, no, we're done just making fun of it and letting it just kind of die out.
So I have to make the controversial point that I think that it was because it was a man, and it was because it was a black man. I don't think a white man would have gotten away with saying that.
No, he wouldn't have. Because, see, the brother, they're always trying to get down on the brother. You understand? And brother try to get something. They don't want to see a brother make it. They don't want to see a brother making too much money and all of that, man.
Mm-hmm.
But
so he was the right man at the right time.
To be fair, though, I will say that didn't Eddie Murphy, like many years, like in the 80s, didn't he do a special where he talked about Bill Cosby? And I don't know if he insinuated, but I know he talked about his character, quote unquote character. So Eddie Murphy was even making jokes about it in the 80s.
Then plus timing, the timing.
Yeah. Well, Eddie had a bigger platform, but yeah, you're absolutely right, Lauri. I remember him talking about Bill Cosby, not, calling him personally.
Yeah.
So, stop all the cursing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you just said, you're funny, but you don't need the cursing. And yeah. Well, I'd rather have the cursing than the rape.
Yeah.
So in April, Cosby was convicted on 3 counts of sexual assault, with a jury finding him guilty of drugging and sexually assaulting Andrea Constadt. He is currently serving a 3 to 10-year prison sentence for sexual assault and has been selling his art collection to help cover his legal costs.
Oh, boy.
So it's quite a fall for a great talent and an important figure in history.
Why do jackasses just all of a sudden start doing art? Like George W. Bush started painting. Like, why is it
No, this is his art collection.
No, he's selling the stuff he already has.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought he started doing painting and stuff. I'm like,
well,
Jesus.
maybe, but
drawing money. He's trying to draw some checks for them lawyers, baby.
Oh.
So what I want to know is, why did Cosby behave in such a morally superior manner when he knew what he was all up to?
Why does any rapist do it? It's that sense of power, because it certainly wasn't about sex.
No, but why did he go around? I get why, the question is big. Why does a rapist rape? But why did he go around telling other people how to behave when he had so many demons, Lane?
I mean, I think part of it is projection, right? Like you see that a lot with like the anti-gay legislators, and then it comes out that they like are on Grindr and like all that stuff. Like, I feel like the more skeletons you have in the closet, you're more going to be like, look at those people.
So it's
they're
deflection.
wrong. Yeah.
Well, also, I think that, people that you when you do that kind of thing, you split yourself into 2 people. You split yourself into 2 people: the person who does these things and the person who's this upstanding gentleman who, has a family and has, is sort of like the pillar of the black community, and he's looking at other comedians and saying like, well, you're not portraying what I view as the right thing. He's not thinking about the rapes, like I think we put our morality on other people when they do these kinds of things. They don't have our morality. They don't care. They have their own set of guidelines. Mm-hmm. So I think that, I think he just probably, I think he still to this day probably thinks that,
justifies it.
Yeah. Comedians need to start, being better.
And so I just have this memory of, I think Wanda Sykes was hosting the Emmys, Brad. Maybe you can help me with this memory. And she's working the aisles, and she's...
Oh, my God.
And do you remember this?
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Lou.
And he's sitting there with this look on his face like... Oh. Because, she uses vernacular and just she has a way of speaking that's all her, and he just was not having it.
Did you remember what he said to her?
Yeah, what did he say? Help me remember.
He had this very
would you like a cappuccino
look, and on her, she goes, okay. Wanda Sykes was still new at the time, and she sees her brother in the audience. She another comedian. She's expecting to get some love.
Right.
Okay. He looks at her like something on the bottom of his shoe.
Heartbreaking. Yeah.
And said to her, "We spoke English." I said, well, ain't that a bitch?
Wow.
Yeah, I was pissed off at him for that.
Yeah.
But let me tell you something about, what people ask me how I felt about this. Shortly after I started in comedy, I got off my job early in Evanston, Illinois at Harold's Hardware Store, so I could go over to the Mill Run Theater where Bill Cosby was performing along with Nancy Wilson. He was the headline.
Nancy Wilson.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She was his opening act. And
What?
I went over there because I wanted to meet Bill Cosby. I was just starting out. I wanted to get some pointers. I ended up sitting. I walked in with the band and the people who were loading in. I knew if I got there early, I could kind of blend because, it was a white joint. And, we all do look alike. And I looked like I was working there. So I rolled on in there and I sat there. And this security guard introduced me. He told me, he got to know me. He says, look, when Cosby comes in, don't say anything. Let me introduce you. He introduces me to Bill Cosby. I go into his dressing room and he was just telling me about the importance of having unique. I said, Cos, I want to work clean like you do. He says, well, you got to work the environment that you're dealing with right now. Where you're working, she's over there doing a BJ and this guy's over there slinging drugs and this thing is happening over here. You got to first get their attention with what they know, what they like. Then once you get their attention, you do your stuff, but you got to pay them off. You got to be funny. And, that was good words of advice and I appreciated it. And I always respected him for the first thing he did after I Spy being a William H. Cosby production, which is what put me in the mind of comedy as business.
Mm-hmm.
And, and being able to produce your own stuff and the importance of being able to produce your own vehicle. You don't have to wait for somebody else to create something for you or find out what to do with you per se.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started reading about this stuff back in 2005, even before, these stories would come up. I read stories about him and the young lady he got pregnant back in, I think that in the 90s. So he's been doing this a long time and getting away with it. And back to the previous question about why we're just starting to listen to it, why they didn't listen to the women, is because the abuse of women is normal. It is a part of the inequality of women that has existed since the time of humans, beings inhabiting rather the earth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a normal thing. She did it. She wanted it. And in a patriarchal society,
Mm-hmm.
who's got the power?
It's like an ownership thing.
Well, I still think it's also one of the issues is it's still looked as a sexual thing. Damon Wayans, when this was kind of really hitting the fan, Damon Wayans went on the radio and he did this whole thing about how he didn't think that these women were telling the truth because he's like, well, have you seen the way these women look? I wouldn't do anything to them.
Oh, wow.
And
that was Trump's excuse too.
And it was just like, I don't know about any of the women here, but I've been sexually assaulted. I've been sexually harassed. And I don't think I'm, I don't think I'm Charlize Theron. I think I'm like a notch below Charlize Theron. So I just think that it's about power.
Well,
it's about,
do you?
Thank you. That's the nicest thing any black man said to me.
That's so sweet.
That was wrong on so many levels.
It was wrong, and then wronger.
See, you brought it, and I brought it to another level.
Already.
No, but I think it's when we start recognizing that it's about power, it's about control. It's men get the same treatment. There have been men. We are finding now that men are getting treated just as much as the same in certain circumstances as women are. And so it's just like I think once we recognize that it's a sexual act, but it's not sexual. It's about power. It's about control.
Yeah.
And and it's about being able to lord something over somebody. It would be the same thing if they beat the crap out of you.
There is this dominance thing that they do to each other that women don't even know about because we're not in the middle of it.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, I agree with Lauri there that men feel like even if they're not thinking about it consciously, I think they're subconsciously thinking about do I have control over my immediate surroundings? And if another man enters even a conversation circle, the dynamics will shift and it's okay, let me size everything up. What's going on? Am I okay?
And I protect myself.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how everything kind of came to a head with Bill Cosby because Hannibal Buress, he pointed out in that clip that Bill Cosby had been a big proponent of respectability politics. And this is a time starting from maybe in the mid 2000s where respectability politics was being like taken on. In terms of, you know, like the Black Lives Matter movement, but also kind of bringing everything around to like Me Too, you know, women are coming out and saying, it doesn't matter what I'm wearing. It doesn't matter what I look like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is like, there shouldn't be a correlation. There shouldn't be a question like, oh, what were you wearing the night that you got raped?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So everything was kind of like coming together, and, you know, Hannibal, like you said, Hannibal Buress was kind of like, he took the temperature of that.
Yeah, I think it was the tipping point. And I agree. I think you're right. I think it's the fact that it was Hannibal Buress. I think if Amy Schumer had said it, I don't think it would have gotten the same traction. Mm-hmm. I think it had to be him because also Hannibal Buress is just, I mean, he's amazingly talented. So he's able to bring levity into any situation.
And he's so very well respected.
Yeah. And so I think the fact...
he was the guy lucked up on a perfect storm of comedy, and he told the truth about it.
Yeah.
He told the truth about it. He didn't make that situation, but he told the truth. And that's, again, what made it so powerful.
Yeah.
Because truth is consistent and it can't be denied.
Right.
You can try to deny it, but he told the truth, and everybody like, I got to give it up, man. That was some bullshit.
I mean, 30 Rock, when we go back to 30 Rock, they talked about, they did a lot of jokes. They talked about Harvey Weinstein, Jenna Maroney in the show. She one time said something like, you know, I've turned down Harvey Weinstein for sex 4 out of 5 times. So, I mean, it's like they made jokes about this kind of stuff all the time, but it didn't get any traction. Nobody was like, hey, we should look into that. You know, they were like, oh,
I think Ronan Farrow was like, yeah, we should look into that.
Oh yeah. But I mean, it's when Ronan Farrow decided to do something. It's when, you know, I think it's just a groundswell. It's when a movement is going forward, and then you just have this like tipping point where it's finally everybody has to look at it.
Incontrovertible.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to move on and talk about Dave Chappelle.
Because nobody hit on me.
Brad, it goes right over your hat. We hit on you every day, all the time. Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle's fascinating, right, Brad? Because Dave Chappelle walked away at the height of his success. Man. I think you did some research on exactly why, because the reason he gave at the time may not have been all of the reasons, right, Brad?
Well, we were talking the other day. There was a panel at the Writers Guild, and they were talking about how he was frustrated over the fact that there were 3 different shows expected of him. The executive producer wanted one show, the network wanted another show, and the director wanted a 3rd show. And there was all this stuff going around and swirling around. And it just got to be, see, what people don't understand, because no one likes to see sausage being made, is that show business and Hollywood can be a very ugly thing. It can be a very mind-blowing thing. And you have no idea what people who are stars and big money earners and people who make money for networks and other third-party entities go through. And what David was going through, I don't think only his closest friends know. But what I do know, one of the things he told Oprah was, you know, he came in one day and they brought him a dress, and he didn't want to be a guy in a dress. Well, he probably got approached in some really foul ways here and there. But what was amazing to me about his transition was when he left, he went and, you know, he leaves the show and everybody said, how can you leave all that money? Blah, 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 blah. But what they didn't know is he got the video rights.
Okay.
Yeah.
He got the home video rights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Golden.
And didn't he still get producer credit or something for the last season? Because the last season was just old footage of sketches that they had done that they hadn't aired or something like that. And so didn't he also get paid for that as well?
Well, yeah, but think about how much money the video's worth.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Mean, that first of all, when they first releasing this mega, because he was hot.
Yeah.
And the network didn't really think the video was going to be that significant until it started selling like hotcakes, bananas. It was just bananas. So he walked away and went to Africa and chilled out and counted his chips. And everybody thought, well, how could he turn down that money? Well, he turned it down because he was driving them nuts on one end, but on the other, because he stood his ground, he ended up with a better deal than he ever thought possible, I think.
Okay,
now,
so even though
he's speculating.
So from what we know is that he walked away from a $50 million deal. He also left the country to go to South Africa. And what he recently said to Gayle King was, he said, I was talking to a guy, he basically said to me that comedy is a reconciliation of paradox. And I think that was a irreconcilable moment for me, that I was in this very successful place, but the emotional content of it didn't feel anything like what I imagined success should feel like. It just didn't feel right. So, and I think we can all learn from that. And like, what I like to say is, like, when you look around and you don't see a good move, your move is to walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And Dave has a lot of, as most comedians do, Mr. Chappelle has a great deal of integrity.
Yeah, he really does.
He got a lot of, I've never I never shook hands with him, never met him face to face, but I have a great deal of respect and admiration for him as a gentleman. Yeah. And certainly respect as a comedian.
Who else has a lot of respect for him, Brad? It's Emily and Tommy. So JC Marie Photography was taking engagement photos of Emily and Tommy on November 10th, and here is what happened.
There's no photos policy. Uh-oh.
Yeah, he doesn't like photos.
Okay.
But something about these two. He photobombed their wedding.
Photobombed.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, my man. Well, see, a lot of people don't like photos because it takes you so long to get it together. You got to stand there while they try to focus their camera and fish it out.
And if you just photobomb other people's photos, then
there you go.
You're in and you're out.
Kevin James has this really funny bit.
Has a 5-second photo rule. If you can't take the photo in 5 seconds, then we're moving on.
Who has a 5-second photo rule?
Who's that?
Tom Joyner.
Oh, Tom Joyner. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm sure he's asked a lot. What were you going to say, Lauri?
Oh, Kevin James has this really funny bit about these people who took a video of him on an airplane. And they just were like, do you mind if we take a photo? And he's like, yeah, sure. And then he just stood there on the airplane and then realized, like, 20, 30 seconds later, they're taking a full-on video of him.
Was it Dave Chappelle?
No, yeah, it was Dave Chappelle.
Then he sent them a bill for $50 million.
Yeah, and I just thought that was so funny that he's like, what are they going to do with this afterwards? Are they going to like show the video of Kevin James just like oscillating back and forth?
Oh, it's Kevin James. All right. All right. Well, we now have the number one list of the week, and this is a good one. This was was a list of the most controversial comedians of all time. This list was done in 2017, and so there's some controversial moments that you'll be noticing are not on the list, but we can add to them as we go along. I picked 14 from the list of 25. Hopefully you'll enjoy, and we can discuss. At number 14, I put Chelsea Handler. In 2011, she pissed off the entire country of Serbia by coming to the defense of Amy Winehouse, who the Serbian defense minister had called a shame and a disappointment. In response, Handler read the statement aloud during an episode of her show, Chelsea Lately, and followed it up with, well, so is your country.
That's the least offensive thing.
She threw an entire country. It is pretty much. Do you know Chelsea? Does anyone here know Chelsea Handler?
I've only seen like a handful of her shows, but I know that she went on a really terrible rant many years ago when Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt were still together, because she was good friends with Jennifer Aniston, and she like called Angelina Jolie the C word and was like really ragging on her a lot. And so it's like, I'm just like,
I just find her delightfully blunt.
Yeah. She's
smart.
I've gone through waves where I've disliked her but I think that's just who she is. I think that's where she makes her money. Is she's like, if you don't like me, then you need to hate me. So
yeah, and she doesn't care.
I think that Chelsea Handler, for the most part, is like not very funny. Like, I don't find her funny.
I think she's funny.
But the moments where she is funny are like really funny. Yeah. So I like accept her. For that.
Yeah.
I could see that. Yeah.
At 13, we have Dick Gregory. Here's one of his. You could say a lot about Dick Gregory, but here's one of his more famous lines. I am really enjoying the new Martin Luther King Jr. stamp. Just think about all those white bigots licking the backside of a black man. And Dick Gregory, he kind of came up with like Mort Saul and these guys where it was like telling the truth on stage was a kind of a new thing.
Yeah.
Right. He was one of the first black comedians to do that. I say one of, because back in the day. I don't know if you're familiar with Burt Williams,
yes.
blackface comic.
Yes.
He didn't start out that way. He started out as a monologist with a suit and tie, and they kicked him out bodily of the club. They wouldn't accept that kind of humor from a black man. Timmy Rogers, who used to open for Carmen Miranda, they wouldn't allow a black comedian to wear a tuxedo.
What?
What are you doing? Yeah. Because Timmy Rogers told me this story himself. Timmy Rogers was a comedian, used to go on the Ed Sullivan Show a lot, and his hook was, "Oh yeah," after the joke. Okay. And the owners came to him and said, "What are you doing? What are you doing wearing a tuxedo?" And Carmen Miranda came to his defense and said that he my comic. You know work, I know work.
Oh.
So he was allowed to wear it, and he told me that he was the first black comedian to wear a tuxedo on stage.
Wow.
Jeez.
That's awesome.
So Dick Gregory was a phenomenon, but I think one of the earlier comedians to do observational political material was Moms Mabley.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And she was fantastic.
Yeah, she is one of my favorites.
Much more than, you had to be there. Even with the documentary that Whoopi Goldberg did, which was fantastic.
I loved it.
Yeah, I did. I love it a lot. I got the poster up in my...
Do you really? I love Moms. Yeah.
Yeah.
So at number 12, we have Louis C.K. He had some problems after posting a series of drunken tweets about Sarah Palin that were rather explicit. And then in 2017, he stepped into controversy again by making some off-color comments about child molestation during his opening monologue as host on Saturday Night Live. And then, of course, Me Too happened to... Yeah. So Me Too happened to Louis...
There's a sex beef.
Yeah. Then he forced women to watch him masturbate.
Yikes. Yeah. He was just kind of wrong on so many levels, to repeat myself. Mm-hmm. Dang. But see, the thing about it, people always, I'm talking, I'm at the age where I go, well, see, it's all just this one thing. It's not. It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But he was an asshole to begin with. If all of these things come out, mm-hmm. and people think that show business makes you like that because you get in there and get corrupted, but you were doing foul shit to begin with. This ain't the first one. It's just public now.
Yeah. I mean, fame and or money just exacerbate who you already were.
Yeah.
If you were like really nice and sweet and open-hearted, there's just more of that you can share with the world. Like Tom Hanks. Yeah. But if you were kind of a dick, then you just have more money and fame to spread your dickness.
It's like alcohol.
I can't tell you how much I enjoyed hearing you say that and watching you say it.
This is going to be on a loop. Your dickness.
Your royal dickness.
No, it's like alcohol. I mean, it's like I'm a loud, obnoxious person, and when I drink, I just become an even more loud and even more obnoxious person.
Wow,
so,
Lauri.
I just think that when you get fame, when you get money, you sort of don't have those pretense that you usually have to have.
Right.
You're just like come out of you that's not already in you.
Yeah,
that's it, Brad.
Exactly.
At number 11, we have Paul Mooney.
And don't twist that, Laura.
Yeah, let's just leave that where it was. Okay. Paul Mooney at number 11. Paul Mooney, that guy did a lot of writing for Richard Pryor and a lot of people that you don't even know how great Paul Mooney is if you haven't heard of him. But during the days of Bush 2, an act of Mooney's was cut short during a taping of Showtime at the Apollo because Mooney compared Barbara Bush to the guy on the Quaker Oats box. He's the first person to draw that comparison. Now it just seems commonplace, right? But Mooney vowed to never again work at the historic Harlem Theater. I mean, he'll find beef with people. I've watched him do it. He's proud.
Well, I used to work at the Comedy Store, right? Mm-hmm. I used to be the guy. I work at the doorman, and in exchange for $2.60 an hour, you get 2 spots a week and whatever. Mm-hmm. But the fun part about being in Los Angeles in the 70s and 80s is to see how comedians formulated their acts. And Paul would work that Quaker Oats thing, saw a lot of nightlight before he did it on stage in front of a TV audience. And Paul they would put Paul on last because he was going to empty the room.
Oh yeah, he loved it. Yeah.
Oh, nigga. Oh, white people. Oh, white people. nigga. Oh, white people. Oh.
In a lot of ways, Paul is like one like the original comics comic because even if he emptied the room, all the comics stayed.
Yeah.
To watch.
He had a segment on Dave Chappelle's show.
Did he?
He would do like it was like Mooney's Minute, or I forgot what it was, but it was essentially him just making like the craziest things, and it was hilarious.
And he would still like walk the room, right?
Yeah, I'd get up and leave.
What was that movie that Halle Berry did? Monsters Ball.
Right.
And Paul Mooney said this to me. I don't know if he ever did it on stage. He says, "Oh yeah, they're gonna have a remake of that movie, starring Whoopi Goldberg called Balling the Monster." Do you like that?
Oh my God!
Damn, Paul, get away from me! I can't be around you, man.
I have those friends that you're just like, can you just not say that we're friends?
Like, yeah.
Let's just we'll just talk. We'll talk in different groups during this moment.
At number 10, we have Andy Kaufman. Where do we begin? He would challenge women in the audience to wrestle him. He would then wrestle them. This led to him taunting and challenging professional wrestler Jerry Lawler to a match. I have kind of a Forrest Gump aspect to my life where I've been in places that are just where it's just kind of like, why was I there? So like OJ ate dinner at my family's house when I was a kid, and I was a witness in the Michael Jackson trial, and
oh wow,
and Cosby tried to get me to drink a cappuccino when I was interviewing. I'm not even lying.
No.
Jesus, seriously?
No.
Yeah, and
I thought you were just talking about like
being
in Vietnam.
No, I was not yet, but like for Andy Kaufman, I'm a page on the John Davidson talk show, and for some reason I'm like the Zelig who's in the producer's office. And they're trying to talk Andy out of doing that match with Lawler. And there was this moment where Andy looked directly at me and said, "What do you think?" I'm a page. I'm wearing my page suit with my little name tag. And you looked right into his eyes, and you were just like, "Oh, I don't know if anything I say is going to register," because there's that look that where you're looking past his eyes into some kind of ethereal space. And I just said, "Don't do it, Andy. He's going to kill you." I think I said he's going to kill you. He didn't listen to me.
Of a sweet young thing.
Yeah. And you saw what happened. But, you were
right. Nothing you said was going to make a difference.
No. I do think it was kind of planned out, but I think it hurt more than he thought it was going to hurt.
Yeah.
Oh, baby. Getting slammed, please.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I think is different than I think Andy Kaufman is a different comedian in that I think his whole being is a comedian, whereas like I'm able to sort of dissect myself from my stage life, where I think like Andy Kaufman, just from what I've seen, you probably know more, I feel like he is the person that there's no like action. There's no like I'm going to go now be this different person.
Do you guys know how we know a lot more about the autism spectrum than we ever did before? And you could like retroactively look back on people and circumstances in your life and go like, I wonder if he was spectrum-y.
Oh,
because that's how it feels when I relive that conversation in the producer's office. I feel like he was on an autism spectrum, and he just wanted to keep pushing that envelope because that's how he knew he would get attention.
Never thought of that.
More and more outrageous.
I honestly don't think he truly knew why he was funny. I think because he himself was the thing. So I think what he did was every comedian does this, but I think he did it as himself, where he just threw crap at a wall and just said what will stick, and it was just him. But I don't think he ever truly knew, just based off of like the things he would do. It's just like you said, he was pushing the envelope,
but then it would
he
work,
didn't know.
And then that became the addiction.
Yeah.
Well, he had a group of people that he would come around with. He would change them up. But there was one night at the Comedy Store when he was doing a bit. He came in with the Hawaiian shirt on. He was the tourist.
Yeah. And
he was with two women and I think maybe another guy. And he starts to fight with this woman. He's shut up. And B.J. Douglas was on the stage at the time. He said, "Wait a minute, come on, don't do that. Never mind. Yeah, okay, fine. Shut up!
Wow.
I said, shut up!"
Oh God.
And then he went, "Shut up!" said, you want to hit a woman, man? I'll kick your ass. He was charged off the stage going at Andy.
Wow.
And
Jeez.
people had to stop him. And BJ, that's Andy Kaufman. Get back on your stage.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
There are people like that. I mean, I did that a lot. I had a friend of mine where we used to go after shows. We used to go to the Comedy Store, and then we would go to the Improv, and then afterwards we'd go to this IHOP down the street. And afterwards, just to make ourselves laugh, it was nobody else because it was just an IHOP at like 1 a.m. We would pretend that we were in an abusive relationship, and we were at this IHOP, and so that's how we would do it. And it could start off so naturally, like we'd just be talking, we'd be talking about jokes, we'd do whatever, and then my pancakes would come, and he would be like, "I told you not to order pancakes again," and I'd just be like, "Oh, we're playing the game," and it would just be to see if anybody would interject, and it literally was just to make ourselves laugh.
What would you do?
Yeah, but it was just one of those things where it's like,
right?
that is Andy's entire life.
Yeah.
Like that. Were moments where I did this, but it was like, now I can't stand that kind of stuff because it just like, I don't know why, but it just makes my skin crawl.
Well, now we know what that actually means.
Yeah. But I think in that moment, like, it was the funniest thing because it was so like raw and it was so like off the cuff, and so it was, and it wasn't people weren't like, they didn't know it was a bit, so there was always that moment of like, are they
yeah.
And so I think that's the thing that like Andy lived off of, is that he was just like and I think it's hilarious that this one man has created so many douchebags who try and imitate him.
Yeah.
And it's going to keep going. And it's just like so many people are trying to be Andy Kaufman, but there's only ever going to be one Andy Kaufman.
He's a legend.
Thank
All right.
God.
Number 9, we've got Tracy Morgan, who's not really usually controversial. It was this one moment in Nashville. I don't know if you know about this, Brad, but remember there was a moment in Nashville where Tracy claimed that if he had a gay son, he would stab him.
Oh, shit.
See, this brings up a big point for me.
I don't know that story.
Yeah,
This
that
brings
happened.
up a big point for me because I don't agree with what he was saying. Obviously, I don't think anybody agree. Maybe Mike Pence, but I think that
We don't know.
Yeah.
You can't prove that Mike Pence hasn't stabbed a gay son.
yeah, you can't.
There's no evidence
There's
that he
no evidence.
hasn't.
Prove that Mike Pence is not gay.
Yeah,
You can't
that's
Well,
true.
that's exactly it.
But but this brings up a big issue for me, which is I think that there's this new thing now where I feel like comedians aren't able to just work on things. And one of the things, Tracy Morgan said was that he was like, I'm sorry, but it was a new bit.
Everyone's armed with a TV studio in their pocket.
It was something I was working on. It was something that I had just thought of, and I was just kind of workshopping it to see where, and obviously it didn't work. So I think that now one of the things is like, if you throw something out there, it could go on TV, and then that could totally ruin you. And it could just be something that you're just like, I'm just going to see how it works. I have a joke that I used to do about my brother that was very dark. And I'm not going to talk about it now because I want a career. I did it a couple of times, and I used to be like, I'm going to figure out how to make this work. And then finally somebody was like, literally, Lauri, that's the saddest thing anybody's ever said on stage. It's not funny. And I was just like, okay, I won't do it anymore. But if somebody had recorded it and like put it out online, then it'd be like, oh my God, this comedian hates her brother. It's like, no, I just was trying to take a dark thing and turn it into a positive, and it wasn't working.
Which is so easy to do. I mean, do you think Monique was working on a bit when she told Oprah to suck her dick?
Yeah, exactly. I think the
more famous you are, the less.
The
more famous you are, the less safe gym there is for your stand-up.
Well, everybody's got a camera in their hand.
That's right.
Yeah.
But if you're someone at an open mic, you probably can workshop that stuff. But if you're Monique, you can't.
Yeah, I mean,
you got to pick your shots on that. There ain't too many holes left.
Right.
Yeah.
There was this club up on Vine Street that I was working out at. And I think that's probably the last comedy hole where you can do anything you want. Nobody's gonna care because no one's there. After the AA meeting, it turns into a comedy club.
Oh, I love those.
Oh, those are the best laughers.
Yeah.
No one leaves.
Yeah, I one time proved a point to a friend of mine because I used to perform a lot of NA meetings, and I was like, you could pretty much say whatever and people will laugh. And then my friend was like, no, I think they like us because we're funny. And I literally went on stage and went, they were dying.
Actually, NA meetings are a little tricky though, because we used to do this one NA meeting in Orange County, and I was like, this guy did a joke that he usually gets a laugh, and he's like, in the car on the way home, he's like, I don't know why that one joke didn't get a laugh, and I explained it to him. So the joke was, he was like, this guy was panhandling, and he was like, I'll do anything for money, and I say to him, how about, I've tried everything, and I said, have you tried prostitution? And and so I go, Charlie, I go, the thing is, they've all tried that.
Yeah, that's read the room.
Wrong room. Right? He was like,
read the room. Hey, you're harshing my mellow man.
Yeah. Read the room, dude. It'd be funny if you'd be like, have you tried accounting? Because then it'd be like, they would have been like, that's sad.
All right, number 8, we have Michael Richards.
That's a great joke. Can I have that joke?
Yeah. Number 8, we have Michael Richards. After winning 3 Emmys as Kramer on Seinfeld, Richards attempted to quiet a noisy group by hurling racist remarks and using the N-word. The meltdown was one of the first of its kind to be caught on camera and go viral. So this was like that tipping point where
at the Laugh Factory.
He had that locked
at the loaded. They were upstairs. Can you picture it, Brad? They were upstairs at the Laugh Factory, and they were filming because it was like, it's Kramer. So they're filming, and I guess
he had there were people heckling him, and they wouldn't stop.
The thing is, though, like, how is that word in your head?
No, but that's what I'm saying is he had that locked and loaded. Like, that was a thing that, like, I'm not saying that what he said was, I'm just saying that, you know, he was pushed. He was pushed. The biggest thing I've ever said to somebody who's upset me is shut the F up. That's all. That's the biggest thing. I've never gone into expletives, called somebody the N-word, and said how I wish they would be hung from trees.
Did he say that's what he said?
Yeah.
Here's it. Yeah, he did that. But hey, the dude was bombing.
Oh yeah.
Period.
He was bombing, and he was getting heckled.
He took it out. He was just wrong.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't really have an act, and this is another one of my Forrest Gump moments where I'm up there with him, and he used to. I used to MC at the Laugh Factory. Yeah, and
Wait, you've met him?
Oh yeah, many times. Yeah. So he didn't have an act.
I thought you knew.
What he did, Brad, was like, and this is one of my kind of like pet comedian peeves, is he wouldn't have an act. He would just use the Laugh Factory to get up there and just kind of like, spar. So he'd go upstairs to the balcony, and he'd do like all of this yoga, and he'd have his legs out over his head, and he'd be doing all this like eccentric. Like, are you actually Kramer?
I'm picturing it, and I'm getting more gay.
And then he'd go on stage, and he would just kind of riff. So if he was bombing, it's because he just wasn't able to, in that moment, get on a roll. And then these people were
it's called having material.
Yeah, he didn't have any.
For what it's worth, I never thought Kramer was a funny character. I always thought he was annoying.
I felt
vindicated.
Hot take.
This is like
I'm going to tell you
King
all the
column.
people that I don't think are funny.
Not that funny.
Yeah.
Remember Larry King?
I also thought Brett Butler was a little too much too.
I liked her.
I loved her.
Yeah. There was a Daniel Tosh did something similar, which was a woman was heckling him. He had material though. A woman was heckling him, and I think he did a joke. It was about his sister. It was a rape joke, but it was about his sister, and it was how
you threw that away.
Yeah,
but it was about his sister.
It was about his sister, and it was a. I forgot the gist of the joke, but it was like essentially they play pranks on each other. So he filled his sister's mace with silly string, and then she got raped, and she called him, and he was like, "Oh, you got me," or something. I'm not telling it as well as he is, but that was the gist of the joke.
Is there a good way to tell that joke?
How could anyone tell it better?
I feel like it's actually I don't know. I like the joke, but anyways. But what I'm trying to say is I don't know. I like silly string. I guess I'm missing the point of that joke.
Silly.
But so this woman was heckling him, and he said, "Wouldn't it be funny if she got raped right after the show?" And so she went home and wrote a blog, and then that kind of really was like the storm of like rape jokes, like where they were like, men need to stop doing rape jokes, and that became like a big deal. And it was true. It's like, you know, it's like the response, and again, I felt like Daniel Tosh had that locked and loaded, and you know, it was one of those things where he could have just been like, hey, you know, this isn't your time to talk, and I do feel like as a comedian, it's like, if you have an issue with what I'm saying, get up and walk away. Like, you can write all you want and say that I'm bad, but don't ruin the experience for everyone else.
Yeah.
If everyone else is laughing and, you know, people are there and willing to stick it out, you know, go, just leave.
Just say, not my thing.
Yeah, write a blog in the car. Like, I don't.
Like, you don't talk back to a movie when you walk out on it.
No, well, some people
Yes,
do.
we do.
I was just gonna say, some people do.
That's awesome.
But so I think that there's a thing with one of the things that I think that is now happening, or did happen, was that it was like people were having to take personal responsibility for their reactions, which is true. It's like, you know, you can get mad at somebody for heckling you, but you can't then, you know, threaten them, and you can't, you know, call them names. And it's like, why are you allowed to do something because somebody upset you when they're doing the same thing back at you? So it just,
I have a question for you guys. So I read the entire list that, because there's more on this list than Louise picked out.
We may not even get to it all.
Oh, sorry.
But
no, you're fine.
Everyone except for one comedian on the list is American, and I just was, and the guy.
Oh no, there were two British people that I skipped over because we don't know who they are.
Right. Okay. Well, so I saw the one.
Michelle Wolf.
I'm sure they're very controversial.
Well, the one British guy that I did see was like incredibly offensive, like what I read there. So I'm just wondering, like, is there something about the American comedians or the American audience that, you know, is so like that, you know, burns the flames?
To be fair,
well, we do have like a Puritan kind of historical origin story.
Also, I mean, offensive humor is like much more mainstream in Britain. Like, we have it both places, but in like talk shows in Britain do stuff that like we do in like nightclubs. Like it's just like a lot more accepted over there. They don't get as offended at like the same stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to skip ahead because we are running out of time. I'm going to skip ahead to number 1, and then we're going to do a second part of this show. So I'm going to skip ahead to number 1, which is, say it all together, Lenny Bruce. The first controversial comedian. His language was so shocking in person, not on TV, that in 1961 he was arrested under charges of obscenity for using the word cocksucker during a stand-up performance in San Francisco. He was acquitted, but his case became a lesson about what one could say in public. This would not be his last arrest.
Yeah.
So we found a little Lenny Bruce, because a lot of people are like Lenny Bruce, but like, all right, what did he sound like? What was his act like? So we have a little bit of Lenny Bruce to play for you.
Up to now, if you think that I'm a bit prejudiced, I'm going to pull the rug out from under you. Show you how prejudiced you are. See, the thing is, you have a choice of a judge or a jury. First place, you're a schmuckabata if you ever take the judge. Because the thing is, you're going to tell him a story to convince him. What kind of shit are you going to tell a judge he hasn't heard? You get 12 impressionable people, solid. Now, as far as getting a goyish attorney, solid. Because you are that prejudiced. Who is more likely to murder his daughter than rape her in a drunken state? An Irish father, an Italian father, or a Jewish father? That's it, Jim. Even the Irish know that the Irish would. So if you are that prejudiced and screwed up, man, what Jewish father would do that, man? Are you kidding? What Italian father would do that? It's only the Irish that sell their kids for bottles with a lot of bullshit. The Irish are the most persecuted minority group ever. When the Jew says a shik is a goy, he doesn't mean the Greek. When the Italians say Medigon, it's the Irish that get zing, 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 zing. Vicious zingos. And they wonder why? Well, here's what goes down, you see. Everybody is always bitching and drugged with and would like to thwart authority. Well, unfortunately for the Irish, writing came to Ireland in the 5th century, you know, and so they memorized everything, and they're genius orators. So when they came over here, man, they got the gigs in government.
All right. Well,
no goddamn sense.
What?
Yeah, Lenny Bruce, not funny.
San Francisco. What the hell? I need the punchline for that, Louise.
Maybe it just ran out. Maybe.
Oh God, I really hope that some point when I die, people are like, let's give it up for, we got a clip of Lauri Roggenkamp, and then it's just literally the joke about my brother. It's just
maybe he eventually made a point. I'm not sure, but he got arrested because like the profanity was something that people were not used to seeing in clubs, and so the police would kind of come to his shows ahead of time and be there waiting to arrest him. And I guess it's just like
crazy.
It's like it depicted in Mrs. Maisel.
Mrs. Maisel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you imagine like what people who back then, like the people who were all up in arms about a black man wearing a tuxedo, what they would think now? Like it's just, to me, it just boggles my mind that was an issue back in the day. Like Lenny Bruce, black man wearing, it's like what? Why was that? It's just so crazy. If
you ever want to feel like, oh my gosh, we have come kind of far, watch the movie Lincoln again, because the movie Lincoln is Congress arguing about whether or not people should be able to own people. Like they had no time for health care or like they were literally arguing over whether or not you could own people legally. It's like, that's okay. Maybe we are making progress.
See, they were just trying to find a way to legally save the Union. There was a guy who had a joke about, I don't know who did this joke, but it says, we like to watch Ruth backwards so it can have a happy ending.
Oh God, I've heard that before.
I don't know whose joke that is. Who said that?
But
if I had a time machine, that's what I would do. Right? I would literally go in my time. I wouldn't kill Hitler. I would go in my time machine and I would go to like Lincoln, the time when they're arguing, and I would walk in and I'd be like, hey guys, what about gay marriage? And just leave and see.
What do you think of that?
just like literally leave like a stink bomb. Just be like,
I mean, just think of all the problems that weren't getting solved while they were arguing about that. Forget kids. Kids worked in factories. Right. I mean, there was
like
all
losing their arms. And
exactly.
Yeah. Well, that was just fine. That was all fine. No problem.
That's how we got Carnegie Hall.
Yeah, exactly.
That's who they were working for.
Yeah.
Yeah, Carnegie. Yeah, and there was a time where like a bunch of people that were completely out of work and starving in big cities just kind of marched on Washington, and then it was the first march on Washington, and what did they do? They just locked up the main guy. They got to the White House and they just put the main guy in jail. And nobody all he wanted was a chance to work and build roads and bridges and things, and they just said, nope, you're not marching on Washington. They just put the guy in jail.
This is like where the job of comedians comes in to like change the world, because there's like the offensive comedians who make like bad rape jokes, like they're offensive in that sense, and there's the comedians that offend people by like knocking them off their pedestals. They're showing them what is going on. And what you're offended by is the fact that you can't just like be happy, pretend like nothing is wrong.
We have to pay attention. Yeah.
It's the underlying truth.
Yeah.
It's society's your underlying truth.
It's pointing out society's ills so that we can fix them. All right, we're going to go to what's Twitter trending. And what was Twitter trending today is hashtag Facebook down. So I guess Facebook was down, and has anyone noticed that people on Twitter are just like 100 times more arrogant than people on Facebook? So when Twitter was working and Facebook wasn't, Twitter was having a lot of fun with that. So hashtag Facebook down. Let's see. We have a tweet from the Beaverton, and he tweeted, millions of Facebook users take to the streets yelling out their personal data, hoping to be heard by advertisers and spy agencies.
That's a good joke.
Yep, it's a good joke. We have a tweet from David Schneider. Welcome to Twitter, Facebook people. Make yourselves at home. We have Nazis here, too.
Oh, God.
And then Richard Cheese. You know who Richard Cheese is?
Yeah.
Brad?
Yeah.
Great.
This is our friend Mark Davis.
That's the music guy, isn't it?
That's our friend Mark Davis.
Love that guy.
Yep. So he wrote, question, what kind of feathers will you find on baby Facebook ducks? Answer, Facebook down. Hashtag.
Oh.
Right. It's a pun, everybody. And good news.
Now that's comedy.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, that's what I call comedy.
So good news. Facebook is back up, and I was able to pull up this post from my friend Cheryl Argret. So we have Facebook feed time. And this is a post from Cheryl Argret. Did you know that Bruno Mars has donated enough money for the Salvation Army to provide 24,000 Thanksgiving meals?
Wow, that's awesome.
Really?
That's a lot of meals.
Bruno.
And every year he's really super charitable, and this guy gives a lot back. So,
yeah, this guy, that guy came up in poverty and had to work. He was working real hard as a kid.
Yeah,
I think he and his family did a show together or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's how he made their living. I just kind of caught a snippet about his history. And when people have to work and earn what they get, they have appreciation for other people who are in the situation of dire need. Yeah, it teaches you humility and gratitude.
Yeah.
Well, he certainly learned that. I want to thank you for being with us, Brad Sanders. Where can we find you online?
You can probably find me at bradsanders.com. Oh, and go check my website out. Facebook page. Yeah. Babies, it's begoodtowomen.com. And Be Good to Women Day. I'm co-founder of Be Good to Women Day back like 20 years ago or something like that. And our mission is to change the thought and behavior toward women and girls and replace it with encouragement and blah, blah, blah.
Well, you have a beautiful wife and a beautiful daughter, and
well, thank you. That's awesome.
You've always been like a huge fan of women and a big supporter of everybody that you ever knew who was a female and talented at Premier Radio, and we're all super appreciative.
Wow, you got it.
There it is.
Yeah, hello.
That's awesome.
All right, I want to thank everyone for being with us. Thank you, Lauri Roggenkamp, David.
Nice meeting you, Lauri.
It was nice meeting you too, sir.
Lane McFadden. Lane, could you introduce our co-techie today?
It's Connor McGuinn.
Connor McGuinn.
Connor.
Dina Friedman. I am Louise Palanker.
Connor's trying to act like he ain't with us.
No, he's there. He's there. He's been working.
I don't know those people.
Happy Thanksgiving. Be well, be safe, be kind. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.